Thanks, y'all, for joining the call. I know either Josh or I've talked to you a little bit about this particular deal, but I just wanted to give you a little background again in case you hadn't listened to one of these before. But no further ado, I will introduce to you Vahino, who is the CEO of Dreamstone Investments, and I will let him take it from here.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this hopefully brief presentation. I wanted to just start off with a little bit of history about me. And I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a chartered accountant by trade, which is your CPA equivalent here in the US. I worked with Grant Thornton internationally for about 7 years. Came to the States about 10 years ago. Started in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area, Miami, and then I'm transitioned to become a management consultant with the Siegfried Group, where I did multiple projects with Wells Fargo, commercial real estate, business banking, to mention a few. Silicon Valley Bank up in San Francisco, San Jose, and then I did a $3 billion acquisition for Johnson & Johnson out in Tampa, where they acquired a shampoo company. We went from 2 units in Tampa to just over 800 units under management in the Southeast. We self-manage and also third-party manage on behalf of other investors in Atlanta, Tampa, and Nashville. This is one of the deals that I think is something that's for any investor that's kind of on the fence. The way this thing is structured is just something really special, and we're quite excited about the opportunity for folks to invest alongside us. The opportunity as a LP position in the Peach deal of Atlanta. Little bit of history about this deal. In the early 90s, this is originally built as a office tower. In the early 2000s, they were in the process of converting this to condos, and by the time they got to their certificate of occupancy, it was September of 2008. Basically, obviously, we all know Lehman Brothers collapsed, and nobody could finance their condo acquisitions or purchases, and the building stood vacant. And what had happened was it was pretty much vandalized. Things like all the copper wiring was removed from the building, like, even from the servicing from the street, all taken out of the building. Just a bunch of vandalism occurred. And the previous owners had decided to try and save some costs, and they cut off the electricity and servicing pumps, and guess February of 16 or 17 came around, and the 12th floor, the doors were open. Obviously, people got in there and whatever, and the pipes froze of the fire system, and it actually went off because it sensed a drop in pressure, because it was completely on its own circuit, and the fire sprinkler system ran for as long as it did until somebody actually came back to the building and was like, hey, this thing is on. And there was no fire alarm because they disabled it. So the fire chief couldn't come in and disable the system. So it flooded from the 12th floor all the way down to the parking decks, which is pretty bad. The property was completely redone, internal components, mechanical, electrical, plumbing in 19 and 20. That was phase 1. Phase 2 was getting the elevators redone, so completely new motors. No expense spared on the steel. This is more of a unique situation. It's more of a good timing kind of thing for us as investors. We are in the lease up phase of this property. So they've done the construction part of it. We're 80% pre-leased. And right now we're taking out a limited partner that for reasons that's beneficial to the current 55% owner, his exit, which is our opportunity to get into a deal that we are going into the refinance phase once we get to 90% occupancy. So, a couple of highlights here: minimum investment 50,000, investment term, 1 year to 2. We're looking at a 16 to 18% IRR return, and I'll elaborate on this here shortly. Projected cash on cash is going to be 8 to 10%. For year one, it's a luxury class A asset, and we'll have a 7% pref on the deal. So just looking at the deal structure, because I think this is something that I have to highlight, is where most of the deals we go in and we'll do our business plan, we'll get it leased up, and then we'll sell it. The structure on this deal is we're going in through the lease up phase. We're going to go to the refinance phase into permanent debt with Fannie or Freddie, and the exit is a predefined exit. So why this is important to understand is that once we hit a internal rate of return of 18%, we're no longer part of the deal. But which is really, if we're exiting in 12 months, it's a pretty strong return for any deal. And it's we're looking at something that's from a risk basis. I always try to look at what is my maximum risk. Well, I'm going to earn a 7% pref, and then also 45% of the net cash flows. So up until the point that I make 18% internal rate of return, I'm pretty much in the deal. Once we get to 18%, I'm out the deal. So put in 100,000, you make 18,000 in money within 12 months, which is pretty good. We are also advancing depreciation like we do on other deals. So we'll have significant losses. And obviously the first year of any lease up is going to have losses in it. So we'll also be accelerating more. A little bit about Atlanta, obviously fantastic location. I'm not just saying that because I live here. Almost 6 million people in the metro. The traffic becomes a real big problem. So the closer you are to work, the better. And what's the median house value is 364,000, median household income 90,000. So fairly strong demographics, strong tenancy bases that we're in. And then with all the construction in the area, the cap rates are always set to be fairly compressed. Again, this is just a slide showing you the different occupancies. A lot of management, a lot of IT, a lot of business professional. So great area to invest in. We always look for that good mix of different industries. We try not to invest in areas where it's like a one pony town, where it's like only one large employer. If that employer moves out, we're in trouble. So nothing like that. We're not at risk there. These are just some of the local projects that are ongoing. If you've been in Atlanta recently, you'll see it's several billions of dollars that have gone into the downtown, midtown, and even Buckhead areas. Norfolk's new headquarters. Just a really good place where you live, work, play, which is fairly indicative of the midtown area. A little bit more about the property. Institutional quality asset, like I said, completely redone, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Like there was literally no copper in the building, so all of that was replaced. All of the plumbing was replaced. Even the old even the old cabinets that were in, because you got to remember this building was ready to be sold. So there was condos, like it was built and put together, and all of that had to be ripped out because it had 5 or 6 days of just sprinklers on it. So what the developer went with was a European touch, with the slate countertops. The property has solid finishes, amenities, and a good mix of units. So when we look at 1 bed versus 2 bed versus 3 bed, the 3 beds are really just penthouses. The penthouse floor has 2-story penthouses, so it's not your typical like higher roofs. It's actually a 2nd story within the penthouses. So kind of unique. I would say every unit in this building feels unique. It doesn't feel like a the typical Miami high rise cookie cutter box that most I feel like all the architects that design those are all like copy and paste from each other. The floor plans are unique. They feel spacious, and they definitely serve their purpose of being condo like and not apartment like. So we've gotten good feedback on that. Some pictures, touches like glass in the ceiling, and architectural features on in the ceiling, which is really really nice little touch. Okay, business plan. So we are at about 80% pre-leased. Looking to complete the lease up probably late November, possibly we've got to give us some time. So early December. We've been focused on finding the right tenants right now. We have a couple of ancillary, I call it additional revenue generators for the property, being one, the coffee shop. And instead of building a traditional like germ or kind of things that people don't use, that we know they don't use, like swimming pools and germs, and they aren't really utilized as much. And also we do not want to put a swimming pool on a parking deck, just because of like what's happening in like Miami. So what we've gone with is a coffee shop lounge type of amenity on the deck. We have a operator that's come in and partnered with us. They are going through the permitting phase right now to get their liquor license. It's been fully designed and will be built out probably in the next 3 weeks. Once we get the liquor license, we can open up to the public, and this would just be a great amenity for the residents, right? Like, I can come down, get a coffee, get a bagel, something light. Like, so we're not going to have like heavy food, but it's going to be, because we don't want to put in a grease trap. That's just a whole nother mess to deal with. So we're doing light snacks, wings that you can air fry, like just stuff like that can be easily done in this kitchen that we're building out. And that's set to probably generate around $100,000 to $200,000 of extra income. For me, I look at that as like a mitigant to risk, right? So what if we don't get to the refi? Well, we're going to have additional income coming into the property via this amenity, and that would then boost our NOI, which would then get us to our refinance that we're looking for, or keep us in the deal with with this additional income where you can pay us off. LPs will be enjoying a 7% pref, which means rent comes in, expenses go up, pay our debt service, cash available from the property. For the first 7% gets allocated to the passive investors, so being our 45% chunk, and then everything thereafter gets split. We've had a valuation done in the building, and obviously had to go through that for the bridge. And Berkadia came up with a $40 million value on the property as is. So, we're clearly in the fully leased up, ready to go phase. We would have at 75%, would have a $29 million loan, which would more than enough pay out our position. A little bit about the capital budget. So not a lot in here, but I always like to have a little bit of reserve for unit turns and things. Things break, and while we in our hold, I don't want that cash coming out of operation. So it's always good to have a little reserve there. We have some money set aside for signage and any contingencies on the exterior. And that's like paint, signage, maybe light fixtures and stuff like that, if need be to be repaired. And then we have about a $68,000 operating reserve set aside for that's just operational cash. This is just a 5-year pro forma of what we think we'll achieve. Fairly strong. From a 68 unit building, we'll be generating about $2.1 million worth of NOI fully. This is at fully occupied, and and going out at a a fairly conservative 3% clip year over year. Right now, we're seeing like 5-7% growth, 5 to 7% growth in rental rates, which is kind of become the norm. But we'd like to stay conservative with the 3%, which has always been consistent. The beauty of being in the Midtown area with all these projects starting and completing, where we see the biggest benefit here is really a cap rate compression. If we look at kind of the sensitivity analysis, at $40 million, we're clearing our hurdle, appropriately. So I see no reason why we wouldn't get there. So that's well above a 5.25 cap. And how this works is obviously the NOI that we generate, let's call it 2.1, we would be, applying, or the lender would apply a cap rate of, for Midtown right now, it's really 4.5% cap, but, in a year's time, maybe it's 4.75, which is, pretty conservative, 25 basis. So, we have a good buffer there in terms of valuation. Value is not the issue on this property. And here's a table to illustrate that. These are recent sales, of comps that Berkadia used to justify the valuation. And as you can see, high-rise properties in the same location, looking at 3 and 3.75. These are like sub 4 cap rates for these newly constructed buildings. So, we're looking at $587,000 a unit, which is, it's a different ball game. We just had a refinance on an 18 unit on Juniper Street, and that refied at $528,000 a door, 18 units. So that was a great deal. Next step. So, if you're interested in investing and you've signed into our portal, fill out your application, and you will be able to review all the legal documentation. It's all live. We're looking to have all wires in by the 17th, but no later than the 22nd. We'd like to get this thing wrapped up. And if you have any questions, contact Adam or Steve, or obviously Elizabeth. So that's that. I will open it up for questions if we have any.
Hey, Vahana, this is Jake Pettit. You had mentioned that you had there's 80% of them are already pre-leased. Is that right?
That's right.
Is that of all the units, or all the units that are complete?
Of all the units in the building. So we have some on units that are actually now that are we're doing the punch out on. So literally just the thing that's holding us up, of course, the weirdest thing is kitchen cabinets. And it's not even the kitchen cabinets, because we've got the boxes. It's like the kick panel finishes at the bottom. So if we can't set our flooring because we don't know where the final edge is going to be. So it's like the most frustrating like details like that. So that's getting delivered on Thursday, tomorrow. And so we should be wrapping those floors up pretty quickly.
So if you're 80% now, you said once you get to 90% is when the refi triggers. Is that right? Or
well, it's 90 for 90. We need to have 90 days of being at 90 plus.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at, that's why we're looking at a 1 to 2 year hold on this deal, which I think is not typical. Most of our deals, we're looking at a 3 to 5 year hold, but for somebody that's trying to get into real estate, I think this is pretty cool, because we're going to have a nice K1 distribution. Also, Elizabeth, those are great with the depreciation in the first year, and we'll accelerate a lot of that, and then we'll enjoy a nice return. 18% is, I think it's a fairly phenomenal return in these days.
Will you speak just a tiny bit to K1s and what that really means for your taxes for anybody?
Yeah, so a K1 is your partnership return. Basically, when you invest into a syndication, which is what this is, we're syndicating all our funds together and we're buying an asset together. So whatever your allocation is, so if you're a 10, like let's make an example, 10% of the equity pool, and that gives you 10% ownership or whatever of that asset, it's worth 10, let's just call 10%, then you are entitled to 10% of the profits and losses. So what we've been blessed with with our previous administration, Donald Trump gave us bonus depreciation, which is phasing out next year, and it's going to go from 100 down to 90. So it's not forever. It's forever for new development, but for these rehab deals, existing projects, we've had, was it 3 years now bonus depreciation. So that's where we send in an engineer, they look at the different floor plans, they say, all right, that window, that door, that wall socket, the flooring has, typically has like a 15-year lifespan. We're going to depreciate it immediately down to like 0 on day 1. So now you're taking everything on the inside of the building and you expensing it effectively, right? So you have a massive loss, which we spent $3 million on the elevators alone. So that's that's just going to go to the bottom line. So that's just going to be losses, and that gets distributed to you. So when you have passive gains, maybe you sold out of a stock position to invest in a deal, these will be offset in your annual tax return and will wipe out your taxable income. So it's very powerful stuff. Everybody looks at that IRR as a standalone, like, oh, I'm making 18% or 20% or whatever that number is. But there's also a tax benefit to that too, where you've earned cash and not paid any tax on it, which is very powerful. I mean, there's a lot of smart guys on here, so I'm sure you'll know the benefits of that. Does that answer your question? Well, I guess, yeah. So then the K1 is your share of that, and you take that to your CPA.
Yep. Perfect. I'll send out a link to the investor portal so you can fill out just the initial step, and then it will bump you to the next stage if you're ready to, if you do want to go ahead and invest. Or if you have any questions, of course, email me or Adam, who is on the slide deck that everybody has too. He's a good resource as well. And Steve, who we didn't mention, who is also someone that I've worked with, who actually introduced Vahano to and I to one another. So he is another good resource as well. But certainly you start with us and we'll answer everything we can.
Is it the same investor portal for the deal in Nashville as well, the Dreamstone?
That's right. Yeah, you can just log in. For existing investors, you'll just be able to log in and you'll see, up and coming deals or new deals, and you can just click invest now and we'll take you through the same process.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time.